Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Ferguson, and welcome to another of our Sonar Spotlight interviews. Now, for those of you who've been following our quarterly InsurTech briefings, you'll know that we've been keeping a keen eye on the evolving life and pensions and long-term investment space, which we've seen quite a lot of change in of late. And if that's an area that's of interest to you, you'll probably have heard of our guests here today. Not least due to the small matter of a recent $70 million Series D. And if you're not, then, well, hopefully by the end of today's session, I'm sure you'll understand why you should be interested in them. So it gives me great pleasure to be joined by two of the key members of the team from Xempus, who are a leading European pension and life insurance distribution platform. Now, gents, it's absolutely brilliant to have you here with me today. Really, thank you for your time. Now, I always like to leave our guests to quickly introduce themselves. So, Tobias, but perhaps you could kick us off, and Malte thereafter, and then we can dive into some questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. Really happy to be here. Thank you for having us. My name is Tobias Wann. I am the CEO of Xempus. I started mid last year, so I'm about to be here for a year or so. I have 20 years of various technology roles under the belt. Yeah, and very happy to be in the life and pension insurance business now and looking at it from the tech side here.
Brilliant. Well, what can I say? What a wonderful way for you to celebrate your 1 year anniversary by joining us here today, right? Thank you. Malte, over to you, please.
Hi, I'm Malte. I'm the CFO CEO at Xempus. Been with the firm since 2017. Before that, I spent about a decade in investment banking before I turned my life around and became an operator.
Came away from the dark side. Wonderful. Okay. Well, brilliant. Thank you, gents. So let's get into some questions, if we may, then. And kind of hopefully everyone viewing this will have some awareness of you. But let's imagine for a moment that not everyone is. So perhaps let's kick off with a bit of an introduction to your business and your business model. Tobias, would you perhaps be able to do that?
I can definitely do that. So maybe, do you want to hear the mother of all taglines? I can tell you in one sentence. So we consider ourselves to be a three-sided SaaS-enabled marketplace in the insurance industry. And what do I mean with this? Three-sided SaaS-enabled marketplace, right? So we connect the activities of about 20,000 insurance agents with about 70,000 corporates and their employees, and all relevant life insurers in Germany. And we do this by bringing everyone on this three-sided marketplace, and we help the agents to speak to the corporates and their employees in a much better and probably more easy way by using technology. It's a fairly complex product we're dealing with, so our platform helps corporates to understand the problem, employees to understand the problem. And then this activity that happens on the platform when agents speak to corporates, speak to employees, this activity we take and we bring it to the life insurers and we package this in a SaaS model, right? This is how I came up with this tagline, right? By now, we actually do about 100,000 new policies on the distribution platform per year. And in general, I think it's probably, hopefully pretty obvious. The growth we are seeing is a phenomenon of people becoming older. Their increasing life expectancy, the aging populations lead to increasing number of people who are retiring. And unfortunately, many of them retiring with not enough savings needed for a carefree old age, right? And if you take this problem and then you look at it not only from a one country perspective, but from a global perspective, it's actually a very, very large number that that comes together. It's about a 400 trillion US dollar global pension funding gap that will amass until 2050. So it's a huge, huge problem.
Yeah.
And then usually the question is, why do we get ourselves into so much trouble? And the reason for that is people are not understanding well enough today what kind of pension gap they might have when they retire. Because again, I mean, usually you don't deal with this every day. You cannot really calculate this at the top of your head. But here's where technology comes in. Here's where we come in with a technology platform. We make it fairly easy to understand by typing in a couple of informations. What is your expected pension gap? How can you reduce this today by saving today and doing more today? And ultimately, if you look at this problem, if you look at how technology helps understanding the problem much better, and then bringing together all the relevant actors, agents, corporates, we do this in the corporate environment, the employees, and then the insurers, that's how you get to the overall kind of platform solution that you've built.
Fantastic. And clearly you're seeing demand for it in the market.
Yeah, I mean, the market, I mean, is clearly growing. It's, as I said, it's a relevant problem for a lot of us, and it's a growing problem for a lot of us. Life insurers are really keen to kind of bring on new business, specifically in the pension industry. We will talk about this in a second. We are taking this now also to different insurance products. What really, really is special about us, and probably a clear differentiators to potential other insurtechs, is we're dealing with this in the corporate environment, right? And why is this important? The corporate environment is a very relevant trust factor when you deal with these type of things, right? If you think about pension gaps, if you think about health and a couple other similar products with your employer at your basically workplace, that's very helpful and trust enhancing, so to say, rather than if you would start trying to find this information on your own, Googling it, if you would ever Google it, right? And that, if you take that, you come up with this recipe around the Xempus platform that has actually fueled the growth we've seen in the past.
Brilliant. And so I guess that's actually quite a nice segue into kind of another question, which is on my mind, which is more about the market conditions. You know, you alluded to some changes in that. I'm interested to explore that and understand that in a bit more detail. Malte, perhaps you could give us a perspective on that.
Sure. So if we talk specifically about our Series D funding round, which we completed during March and April, we were fortunate insofar as we had known the Goldman Sachs team that ended up leading this 70 million round for many years. Happened to be former colleagues of mine when I was still in banking. And then since joining Xempus, you know, we've built a relationship over time, which, as you well know, is always helpful when you then end up doing a potential transaction together. I think the other 2 points that were quite important in that context were that the Goldman team brought quite a long-term perspective to this business. And I think all of us that work in insurance know this is a market full of tremendous opportunities, But it does take time because things tend to be trust-based, and they tend to be a people business. So you need to have the right perspective. And the second bit is that the Goldman team had sort of done a lot of the industry research, the market research in advance, such that when we actually came to do the deal, we closed it within 3 weeks of signing a term sheet, which is actually exceptionally fast. But I think a testament to a very strong deal execution team on the Goldman side, but also on our side. So we were fortunate in that sense that the overall market correction that we've seen in tech stocks elsewhere didn't seem to have too much of an effect on our particular transaction. Because I think we had the right people at the table who stood by their word, but also because we'd like to believe that insurance in and of itself is a rather defensive sector. So it's probably a more attractive asset class or a sector to be in when markets are a bit trickier. And if you are then able to sort of combine a relatively defensive industry with some very attractive tech, as we'd like to believe we have at Xempus, then you actually have a rather resilient model and a rather resilient ability to finance yourself, even if markets are a bit tricky overall.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I guess so. I've got another set of questions, I guess, related to that. If we've got the kind of the exploration of the situation with financial markets. What are some of the other drivers that have changed more broadly within the life space, life and pension space? And Tobias, perhaps over to you and to get your perspective.
Yeah, I think I alluded on this a little bit already. When we look at the products that we are focusing mainly right now, which is the corporate pension product, right? We see a very clear, obvious driver that state pension levels are at best stable, but probably in most countries they're actually declining, at least over the long run, right? So then that you couple that with an increased and continued longer life expectations, and you get an understanding for a widening gap. And so that's a problem where life insurances can really help with products that they have available. However, and there's a second trend that we all see every day in our personal life, that is people are increasingly used to using technology, right? Smartphones, apps, internet, whatever you want, right? And that type of expectation around technology usability at your fingertips is something that isn't changing with people when they deal with things like retirement planning or life insurances. And I think here's where we really help at Xempus. And we help, and this, I think it's very important to understand, we help insurance companies, we help agents, we help corporates to take this problem and make it easier to understand and easier to act on, right? So we're not trying to replace any player here. We're just helping to be enabling the different kind of platform users to be better or smarter or faster, right? And usually the way we like to look at this is we like to contrast the old way and the new way, right? And the old way, and unfortunately in many cases still would mean pen and paper consultations, very slow processes, data silos, intransparency, all of these things. And as I said, that technology can really help here because you can make more informed decisions, you can be faster, you understand the problem much better, and that's really where we come in.
Amazing. And I guess we certainly see similarities in kind of direction of travel, and traditionally in a market which is remained relatively stable. So, use that? Maybe is that a kind term to use? Not a lot has changed, and so the opportunity for technology to come and augment or support or enable more effective conversations particularly between agents and any intermediary and then customers wherever they are can only be a net benefit for both parties, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So technology really makes a big difference here. We are helping to explain this rather abstract problem to a younger population, right? That is much more technology focused, so to say. We're also helping the agents to kind of use technology. I mean, let's be very honest. Insurance agents are probably not your poster child, so to say, for technology usage in these type of things. So kind of making a product easy to understand for them as well is increasingly helpful, because that allows them to speak to their customer groups more easy. COVID has been, I mean, like probably in every other industry as well, a huge accelerator in this segment, right? Because all of a sudden, the typical consultation couldn't happen in the usual context, which in our case, mostly the corporate context, right? Where you were sitting down with an employee or an HR person in a conference room or around a table, right? So all of a sudden this had moved to the screen, to the internet, right? And here's where we came in and it offered the right solutions at the right time, which clearly helped us, but then ultimately obviously helped everybody using the Xempus platform. So the opportunity for us is really, really big and continue to grow. Alone in the corporate pension market, we think to kind of calculate our market opportunity about 10 billion annually, right? That's usually the cost that the insurers are paying or have to pay for creating for the distribution process, but also for policy management. So this is a huge market, 10 billion euros alone in Germany. Think of it. I mean, the gross written premium in life and pension in Germany is about 100 billion annually. It's about 800 billion in Europe, right? So if you take all these market numbers, if you take the dynamics we are seeing, this shift from analog to digital, that's where we come from when we look at the opportunities for Xempus. And then, as I just mentioned, we just talked about the corporate pension product. There's very interesting adjacent products next to it, like corporate health, that is sold and managed in a very similar fashion. And that's basically, there's tremendous opportunity for us to take that and develop that further.
Yeah, so I did wonder actually, and we're certainly seeing on both sides, right? So from a life perspective, a kind of a blurring of the edges of its relationship with life and other products, particularly health, and conversely as well, right? In health space, from specific products through to a much broader definition of wellness overall, which comprises of physical health, mental health, financial wealth, health as well. So maybe let's come back to that in a moment, because also something else you touched on there. I was interested in. I'm always interested as soon as there's investment involved, and of course every business is ambitious. And actually, what does that opportunity look like for Xempus when you're looking at internationalization or wherever that may be, whether that's further European expansion or beyond as well? Malte, perhaps you'd be able to speak.
Sure. So when we look at our levels of growth, there are really three key components. So the first one is we have what is by now quite a well-established, fast-growing business in Germany, which we'd like to just scale up further. So that's in particular a question of just taking more market share, in the sense that of the, let's say, 5 million pension and life policies sold each year in the country today, about 100,000 or so annually go through us, and we'd like to take that market share up further by winning more insurers, winning more sales organizations, and broadening our product offering. Sure. The second level of growth for us is that we just keep expanding our role within the value chain and the services we offer. As you probably know, the average number of end-to-end processes that are digital, fully digital in the life insurance industry is about 5 to 10%, which means about there's 90% that are not end-to-end digital, right? So there's still a huge scope to just digitize ever more of the pre-sales, the after-sales, and the life cycle management. And as we keep doing that, we'd like to think that we keep offering ever better service to our agents, our insurers, and our corporates, and as a result, keep growing our business. And then lastly, as you mentioned, international expansion is the third growth lever for us, where we're looking at a number of adjacent markets that we believe have at least the same structural dynamic as Germany, in the sense that there's quite a strong focus on corporate-based pension and life insurance provision, which we quite like, because we think that's the natural context in which to talk about these types of products, because they all somehow relate to, do you have a job? Is the main earner in your family able to have a job? Are you healthy? So that's the one bit we like, and we like markets with strong intermediaries that help people find the right products, and we'd like to believe that if we can make the intermediaries better at their job with the power of technology and connect them to all the product providers, then we're able to transpose what we like to think is quite a successful business model in Germany into other markets. Because as Tobias said at the beginning, the underlying challenge is global. It's gigantic, right? Whichever way you look at it, people need to be doing much, much more in terms of retirement provision or general protection or health, right? So, back of the envelope, just in Germany, people would need to do 5 times as much as they're doing today, right? Which is just such a huge factor that whatever you do, you sort of broadly walking in the right direction. And it's very similar in many other countries across Europe and actually most of the most advanced economies.
Yeah, that's depending on your perspective, that could also be considered quite a terrifying statistic as well, right?
Yeah, there's something slightly odd about being a tech company, in that sense that you look around, the more problems you see, the more excited you get, because you are actually able to help fix them. So custom interviews, or actually prospective customer interviews, are a great way to find out some of these really horrific pain points. And it does sometimes lead to rather odd situations where there's somebody on the other side of us telling us the most horrific experiences they've had with either their company or their insurer or their broker. And everybody is really, really upset, and we go, oh wow, we can fix that, and we can fix that.
Yeah, I have some experience in those sorts of areas, but it's a fundamentally amazing way to truly understand your customers' needs, and therefore be able to design products and services which can only ever meet them if you really understand what those needs are. So yeah, fantastic. Well, actually, so on that note, then, what are some of the challenges that well, you guys specifically, but I guess anyone in this market is seeking to overcome?
Am I the guy for challenges as well?
Yeah, I think so. You're on a,
yeah. Tobias gets to do like
I get
all the great, fantastic
on the high note. Yes,
hey, that's the CEO's prerogative, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the challenges so much specific to Xempus, but more broadly to, I think, the entire industry, in the sense that the fundamental proposition we're putting to people is give up something now to help solve a potential problem in the future. And anything that makes this trade-off harder, be it very high inflation, be it budget constraints, being concerns over the future because there's security or other issues top of mind, I think make that trade-off harder, right? Because ultimately you need to hold the belief that what you're giving up now for something better in the future is a good trade-off, however scientific or not you're going about that decision. So I think the big challenge here is that people are not aware enough of how tricky it might be down the road. And
is that changing, do you think?
We'd like to think we're helping it change, in the sense that we tend to find in our data, when we look at sort of very specific sort of individual by individual data, we tend to find, for instance, that people who use Xempus will end up saving or protecting twice as much as that same person would usually do left on their own. So that we can say for sure, that we can see in the data, but we probably wouldn't go as far as say there's sort of a societal shift whereby everybody is aware of it is. We really believe that on a case-by-case basis, people need to understand what their particular challenge is and how it can be addressed, and that we actually believe is fundamentally what we help do. We bring together a human being that can build trust and understand something, like a really good agent, and technology to bridge that disconnect between what a lot of people will naturally want to do or assume and what they ought to be doing. And we'd like to think that if you sort of convince people one by one, that is probably quite labor intensive, hence you need tech. But that is the way to really sort of get the most out of it.
If I may add one thing here, I mean, there's only so much technology can do here, right? And Malte alluded to a couple of, I think, impressive numbers where we are able to kind of demonstrate that making it easier to understand and showing it through technology makes people save more. But there's clearly also, a greater significance of the topic is still required, right? We need political leaders, but also business leaders, because again, it's a corporate product, right? That's sold in the corporate environment, to actually draw attention to this topic and help explain it, why probably individuals need to do more themselves rather than actually depending on potential state pensions or things like that. So I guess ultimately we can show that technology can help a lot, can facilitate that, can make it easier, but there's a task still to do by political and business leaders to bring the topic up again and again.
Yeah, sure. I think that the overarching awareness piece and at the same time is providing solutions which can make the process faster, quicker, easier. You still want to be driving awareness at the top there to highlight the need for it, and then once they get there, then of course it all becomes a much smoother process. So I think Malte, you've just had a particularly tricky question in the challenges. Maybe something that's a little more light-hearted, fun. You've obviously had a pretty significant Series D of late. So what's on the shopping list? What are you going to spend the money on, or what have you already spent the money on? What does that mean for your business?
Sure. So when we look at growing our business, I already talked about the things that matter to us, right? So we keep scaling up our German business. So that's about taking market share. And we keep expanding our role in the value chain by offering ever more digital services. And we look to expand internationally. And behind each of these three initiatives, at the end of the day, are people. This is a people business, getting the best possible product and engineering people, and then the occasional bit of overhead like Tobias and myself really are critical to executing our growth path. So really the money is substantially all going to go into finding great people who help us drive this business forward.
Brilliant. And could you give any specifics on the markets that you're looking to expand into, or are they under wraps at the moment as to where you're going?
Well, we do want you coming back for more, don't we? So that's for the follow-up then.
Wonderful. Keeping the cards close to the chest. I love it. Well, yeah, we'd love to chat more, and yeah, maybe let's come back to that one then. So maybe let's what have we covered off? We've just talked about some of the challenges. We've just talked about the opportunities as a result, where the business is heading. But more broadly, what does the future hold? There's obviously significant gaps in protection. I take it, well, clearly you've talked about the comparative lack of digitization across the value chain. What does all of that mean for your business, and some key themes or trends which really are going to govern the future of it?
Yeah, I think if you look at we looked at the employee over the last 20 minutes or so, and we talked a lot about the fact that a typical person like you and me need to do more to close the pension gap and have an understanding basically of the relevance of this topic for the future financial health. But I think there is also a very relevant immediate kind of topic around this on the employer side, right? And I want to make sure we understand this as well. We're living in an increased competition for great talent. It's becomes increasingly difficult, at least I think in the Western European countries, to find the right talent, to keep the right talent, right? So corporates are also required to offer a lot more in what was potentially something great in the past, maybe table stakes today, right? In our world, this is a clear trend, and we can see this also when you ask me about the future. Corporates will increasingly do more, offer more when it comes to protection, life, health products in this corporate environment, right? Corporate pensions, corporate health. So this is a clear trend that we are seeing. Secondly, if you look at it from the agents and just think basically how our platform works, yes, I think I talked about the fact that the median age of a typical insurance broker may go up, but very clearly, and even if basically the digital share may be 5 to 10% today, this will be 15 and 20 and 30% tomorrow, right? So we will see a lot more usage of digital tools in the consultation process in the insurance world, whether this is in the corporate context or whether this is in the private context, right? So this is another trend that is unstoppable, and we'll see more on that in the future. When you ask me about the insurance products, maybe as a third kind of point, I mean, yes, we think about this a lot. We see this obviously on the platform. We have a lot of interesting data points. The life insurance, the pension insurance products will need to open up to more higher yielding investment products, right? There's a clear demand from basically the users, the employees, or the policy holders, so to say, to receive a bit more attractive products when it comes to yield, interest, and these type of things. So I think this is a third trend, and we clearly see this in Germany. I think it's the same trend in other countries as well, that there's a shift happening also when it comes to basically the policies. But in general, I think, as we said, all these trends show in the right direction. There's a continuous need to do more. There's a continuous need to actually use technology to do more. And we will see more and more attractive products, insurance products, that will come into the market. So all in all, we do actually remain very positive here at Xempus about that future you're talking about.
Wonderful. Well, I genuinely have a load more questions. I'm really conscious of your time, and also Malte, poker face. I take my hat off to you in managing some of those lines of questioning as well. But listen, guys, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much, and let's perhaps wrap it up there. And we very much love to chat further in the future about how it's all going, where you're moving, and what the plans for the future look like. So thank you again.
Thank
you, Matt.